Hello and welcome to a special edition of the Red and White Show. Joining me for this one, Rovers' new head coach, Danny Schofield. Danny, first of all, welcome to the show. You've been at the club for a little over a week now. How have you found that?
Yeah, really enjoyable. Initial feeling before joining was excitement. Still very excited. I've enjoyed getting to know all the people here, the players, the staff, and enjoyed working with the players on the pitch. So it's been good.
Sometimes when you take over at a club, it can be in the summer before anyone's back for pre-season, but you were appointed Thursday morning. You were pretty much also always in the meeting straight away, weren't you? I think it went out and then at 9:30 you were meeting the players. What was that like as a quick turnaround? Was it a little bit surreal that you were straight into the heat of it?
Yeah, it is a little bit, and I think a bit of a whirlwind moment for a few days. We had 2 days to prepare for the Crewe game, so it was all hands to the pump, try and deliver some messages into the players, prepare the game against Crewe and then go out and compete. So no time to think really, it's just act.
What are your first impressions of the place? Of course you spend a lot of time with the players anyway, but the staff as well, who you also need to get to know because they're going to be as important as the players most of the time.
Yeah, 100%. I think the staff, every member of staff at the football club and at the stadium are in contact with the players, so it's very important for me to get to know them as people first and foremost. And I think there's some fantastic people at this football club, and I'm not saying that just to say it and just for something nice to say, but I really believe that, and I think ultimately that's the most important thing. If you have good people in an organisation, it helps to build a strong environment, a really strong culture, which I know is a buzzword, and without having good people who are good at the jobs, it becomes very difficult then to pass that on to the players. I think first and foremost the staff are fantastic people. As for the players, I've been really impressed with the levels. I've been really impressed with them as people, how engaged they want to be, how open-minded they are, how much they want to learn, how quickly they're trying to buy in terms of what I'm trying to coach them. So so far so good. It's been really positive. I know it's only 1 point out of a possible 6, but there's lots of positives in the performances so far.
Do some of the members of staff give you a bit of a head start in getting to know the players as well? You can sort of tap into their knowledge of what the players might want and need along the way. Yeah,
I think that was my first approach with the staff, to ask sort of about, before I ask about them, is to ask about the players, what they know about the player, what makes them tick, how do they react to certain things, and the staff have been fantastic on that front.
There's been a fair bit made of the fact you're a Doncaster lad, you grew up here and now you're head coach of your boyhood team. In terms of where you're from, what's it been like? Have you been sort of noticed a bit more in the supermarket, a few more shouts and questions maybe as you're doing your grocery shop?
I've not had time to sort of leave the training ground or my house. My only journey has been from the training ground to the house, so I've not been out in the public too much, but no, I think I'm not one who's big on social media, but I think the reception's been quite good. I think there's been lots of positives from the game. From the games we've played, and I just want to build a strong connection with the Doncaster people, because as you say, Robbie, I'm a Doncaster lad. It's a club very close to my heart. Watched a lot of games previously here and at Bellevue, and I'm hoping we can really grow and develop something here and be a success.
You mentioned when you first joined that communication was probably one of your biggest assets. How important was that in the early meetings to the players? Because your way is a different way to what they're used to, but that clarity is crucial, isn't it, in getting them on board quickly?
Yeah, I think it's one of my key principles, communication, and I think you can do that in many forms. We've tried to be as positive as possible with our body language with the players, tried to be as clear and simple with the messages, and it looks like a majority of the players are taking it on board quickly.
You mentioned as well about how you and James Coppinger are aligned in the way you see football and how it should be played. In the meetings before you were offered the job, did that become apparent very quickly that you both had a vision for the way you wanted to take the football club?
I think so, yeah. I think sort of without being aligned with James, I don't think it works. I think we both see football the same way. I think we've both played football in a similar way. And we speak a lot about psychology and creating environments and cultures as well, and we know how important that is. So I think without me seeing things the same way, it's not possible. So I think in our initial meetings we hit it off really, really quickly, and appointed me as head coach, which I'm grateful for.
Because it would have been a big one for you, wouldn't it, in making that next step? Your next job was always going to be a big one after you said leaving Huddersfield just over a month ago, to then make that decision to go in somewhere else. You've got to be absolutely sure, haven't you, that it's the right one for you? Yeah,
I think so. I'm a big believer in things happen for a reason, as long as you have good values and you work hard. And I learned lots at my previous club in the short journey as head coach. And I've said before a number of times, I'm big on reflection and reviewing, and I did that personally. and then I think that prepared me for this opportunity now.
I've got a few questions from the supporters on social media who jumped at the chance to ask you a few questions. The first one from DRFC Network is simply, how are you finding the new role? I know we've touched on it briefly, but how would you sum up sort of the last 7 days or so?
No, really enjoyable, really exciting, challenging. I think always the head coach stroke manager's role, whatever it is, it's the same to me, is a really challenging one because you put a lot of pressure on yourself. You want to help the players develop and grow as quickly as possible. I love this part of coaching. I love helping players improve, and then ultimately to get performance on the pitch and hopefully result in wins.
Harry says, which individual has had the biggest influence on your coaching career so far?
In terms of other coaches and managers, or
yeah, somebody you've worked with.
Someone I've worked with. Ooh, it's a very good question. I always like to learn and take things from everyone who I cross paths with in my journey. I'd have to say Peter Jackson, the one who gave me an opportunity at Huddersfield Town to play. I think introduced me into professional football, giving me my first opportunity as a player. So I'll forever be grateful to him. He's a person I use now as a mentor. I'm still in touch. So yeah, Peter Jackson and Terry Orrath, I'll have to add, who was the assistant at the time.
Nathan touches on when you said you used to watch Rovers at Bellevue. He said, were there any players particularly that you enjoyed watching back then?
Yeah, I think James Coppinger, he was playing then at the time, I'll have to say him, keep him happy. Michael McIndoe, I remember, the flying left winger, really good. And Tim Ryan, who were a bit different to sort of me, and those two as a player, who were more aggressive but a winner. Yeah, and it seemed to be a really good environment down there, really good fan base, closed in at Bellevue, really good support, and yeah, good memories. Steve
says, if you could sit down with any manager, past or present, for a chat, who would it be and why?
Oh, very good. Past and present. I think it'd have to be Pep Guardiola. I think to pick someone at the top of the game to pick his brains for 2 or 3 minutes would be a fantastic opportunity. So if you can arrange that, Robbie, it'd be great.
I'll have a go. Johnny has asked a bit of a different one. Do you have a favourite cheese?
Favourite cheese? I do quite like cheese. Probably not in a sandwich, but more with crackers. What's the one with like the blue veins in it? What's it? the smelly one. Probably that. But no, look, I like a variety of cheeses, yeah.
Melvin says, who was your favourite teacher at Balby Carr?
Favourite teacher at Balby Carr? Oh, very good question. The first two that spring to mind have been Mr. Blake, who was my science teacher, and Mrs. Woolley, my geography teacher. But I had some fantastic teachers, and I really enjoyed my time at school. But they're the two stand out, probably in terms of sort of them as people and how they delivered the lessons. I think that's the first and foremost thing I remember, and how they sort of taught and educated me. And you probably take lessons from the teachers moving into this coaching role, because you are a teacher of football. So yeah, learn from them as well.
Joe asked, and it's a difficult one I imagine to answer because you don't want to upset anyone in the group, but was there a certain player in the squad you've inherited who you were immediately excited to work with?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very difficult one to answer. And I'm going to sit on the fence and say every single player has impressed me.
Josh asks, what advice would you give to somebody interested in getting into coaching, even if they haven't necessarily played the game at a professional level? Because it can be difficult, can't it, that to find a route in?
Yeah. First and foremost, I think you've got to have a passion for football to become a coach, or a good coach, or a coach who can have impact. I'd say be a student of the game by observing other coaches who have had good journeys. Watch the game of football as a student, so you're learning sort of how to analyse games, and just be brave in your decision making as a coach, because I think it can be pretty daunting sometimes when you're standing up in front of players and you're trying to coach them, and you can only learn from practice. So expose yourself to that and know that you're going to make mistakes, but constantly try and review and reflect on it, and that's how you improve.
Final one from Jack, and I assume it's a question you're going to get asked by the media in a not too distant future. At what point, if you haven't already, do you start to think about January and the ways in which you can strengthen the group?
Yeah, I think it's discussions I've had with James and the recruitment team. Always trying to look and plan ahead and to focus on the future. So we'll be identifying certain areas we want to add to the squad and certain targets we want to get.
Let's move on then to the games you've had so far, the draw at Crewe last weekend. How are you feeling going into that one? Was it nerves? Was it excitement? As a first game as a head coach, how were you feeling?
Yeah, I think there's always mixed emotions. I think probably what you named there, Robbie, a mixture of all those kind of things. But I think in my mind it's always, have we prepared the players well enough? Have they had enough information? Are they physically at that level? Have they got the right nutrition in? All these kind of things in order to hit high performance. So yeah, definitely excited, definitely a bit of nerves in there, and yeah, enjoyment as well, because I think as a coach I'm very fortunate to be in this position, and it is my passion, so I'm very lucky. So yeah, you've got to enjoy that moment as well.
You didn't have the most ideal preparation in terms of the lineup. George was a very late injury doubt, wasn't he? What was going through your head when he's sort of getting off the bus, can barely move, and you're wondering, am I going to have to change the team, particularly as your top scorer as well? It must have been a real spanner in the works to start off with.
Yeah, well, I think Michael McBride, the physio, informed me that George had slipped in the shower, and I thought that were only in comedies, but no, George slipped in the shower, jarred his back, and when he walked into the hotel, he did it very gingerly, so I thought, this 100% he's not playing. But he had a few painkillers. Michael worked some magic on him, got him ready and fit, and George's the kind of character who wants to play football, he wants to play every minute, so yeah, fantastic to get him on the pitch and great to see him score the goal.
You mentioned how important it is to earn the right to play, particularly at this level. Before then, you can try and stamp your authority on that. And I think the Crew game showed that, didn't it? First 15, 20 minutes, there was a bit of pressure from them. But once you grew into the game, you had a good couple of chances before the break and then grew into it even more afterwards.
Yeah, I think I speak about it all the time, about how important the fundamentals and basics are in football as the foundation, then to put your stamp on the game. I thought the game was a bit patchy in terms of how we wanted to play, but look, that's fine. It were 2 training sessions in and then the game. But yeah, the fundamentals above anything else, I think in any walk of life, in any business, in any sporting organisation is the key to really focus on first and foremost.
And keeping it level-headed as well, because it can be a bit frantic early on, can't it? Every team would love to get that first goal, but all of a sudden you've got people running around like headless chickens, and sometimes you think, hang on a minute, let's just take the sting out of the game a little bit and grow into it from there. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's a very emotional game, and that's why we have lots of supporters who follow football. That's why the players play it, because it's emotional, and that's why I coach, because that emotion gives you a buzz. But I think sometimes you've got to think logically. What does the game need? What's the scenario? What's the changes? Do we change tactically a little bit? Do we need to demand more from the players? But yeah, I think definitely you've got to sort of look at things and assess what's needed and make that right decision.
There were little signs of what you wanted in there, particularly the goal as well. That was probably the point where you look and think, okay, the messages are getting across now. It was through the thirds, wasn't it? Tom to Big O and then through, and George does what he does best and finish the move off nicely.
Yeah, we speak a lot about sort of breaking line passes and then progressing and then going attacking from that third without giving too much away, and it was a fantastic goal because it were things we'd sort of discussed and the players executed it well.
Moving on to Tuesday then, a game where you saw a lot more of what you wanted from the team. I mean, performance wise, possession wise, chances wise, you did pretty much everything you could in that game without getting that goal. At what point do you start to think, I don't know if it's going to be our night, or do you simply have to keep believing?
You have to keep believing, I think, right to the end. That's the beauty about football, it's never over until that final whistle, and I'd agree with the things you said, Robbie. We had all those, but the final part was just the finish, was just the ending on it. And again, we've reflected with the players on that, we've discussed things, the players have had their opinion, I've had my view on it, and we've watched a few clips and done a few things in training today to try and make the players aware of how we can do things better in that final third.
From looking at the way you want to play just from the last week or so, it's fairly clear that the work off the ball is just as important as the work on it, because that's what makes it all add up. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, it's a balance. There's no defence and attack which are separate. Everything's connected in football. There's transitions between defence and attack, transitions between attack and defence, and yeah, both are just as important when we're designing sessions and coaching, certainly in the way I coach.
Gillingham, the next test then. They're not had the start they would have wanted, have they, since coming down from League One with Rovers last season. A familiar face, though, for you in the dugout. How much are you looking forward to going up against Neil Harris? Yeah,
it'd be great to see Neil. I think we have a good connection from our days at Millwall. We had a bit of success as players in terms of promotion from League One to the Championship. And these are things you never forget in your life, and I'm sure he thinks the same. But yeah, it'd be great to see him on Saturday.
I suppose you always get that question when a former teammate goes into management, don't you? But did you see that in him as a player? I know he was a very experienced player when he was at Millwall.
Yeah, 100%. He probably didn't see that in me, but I definitely saw it in him. He was the captain, the team, certainly the leader on and off the pitch, and yeah, he set the standards for that team during those seasons I was there.
Without giving too much away on them, why do you feel it hasn't quite gone right for them so far? They've not scored an awful lot of goals, have they? Is that perhaps their biggest downfall, do you feel? Potentially,
yeah. Look, we've analysed their last performances. We know what their strengths are, and we've tried to identify some weaknesses, but sometimes it's very difficult to find the reason. If your team's competitive, you're always then looking for those small details, those certain things that can shift the game for you. So yeah, look, we know how they play, Gillingham, and we'll be well prepared for Saturday.
You've had two contrasting styles up against you in the last few days as well, haven't you? Does that show what League Two's all about? For anybody who doesn't know, if you watch the last two fixtures for Rovers, you get a pretty good guess.
Yeah, I think League Two's full of that. There's teams with certain styles of play, and we identify which teams are playing a certain way, and then we can adapt our sort of game plan to that, but always sticking to sort of what we are and what we truly believe in. But we need to be aware what the opponent is.
I know you mentioned when you were spoken to after the Crew game that their goal didn't really change an awful lot about what you wanted to do in possession. It was just a case of having to get back into a game rather than get the first goal. Is that important in the messages to the players, that listen, we don't change what we do even if we concede a goal?
Yeah, I think so. I think that was sort of evident as well against Stevenage on Tuesday night. We went down, we conceded a goal in the 25th minute, I think it was, and yeah, we just continue doing the same things because we believe in that. We believe in the process. The players are showing in a short space of time that they're believing in it. I can tell that, the way they're engaging with it, the way they're asking questions. So yeah, I speak a lot about processes, so the process doesn't change because we believe we could still create chances, and we did, we just didn't finish.
Is the first goal even more important the way you want to play? Because if you get that, then the opposition are chasing a lot more, aren't they? And that's when spaces become even more apparent.
Yeah, I think so. I think any sort of team wants to score the first goal because it gives you the advantage. So that's always our focus, to be defensively well structured, to continue attacking how we want to attack, and hopefully get that first goal. Yeah, that'd be nice if that happens.
I'm sure if it was to come on Saturday as well, the roar of the eco power, you're desperate to hear that for the first time.
Yeah, 100%. I really sensed a good energy in the stadium the other night from the supporters. I think they saw effort. I think they saw application. I think they saw players willing to fight for the club. And as a fan of football myself, that's all I'd want as a supporter. And then if you can see a certain style of football which the fans can buy into, then that's even better.
Danny, thank you for your time this evening. Thank you at home for watching on as well, and for all the questions we had via social media. Get down here at the weekend, Danny's second home game in charge as Rovers take on Gillingham.